Again, to go ahead with the acknowledgments, I'd like to thank our management at Sandia and also our colleagues at Sandia, especially Linda Wood and our colleagues who've helped with the arrangements and the logistics for the workshop. If you, again, just for logistics, we're going to have a very quick introduction and then a welcome remarks by our Chief Technology Officer, Julie Phillips, and then talks will start from there. I'm Murad Okandan. I'm a member of technical staff at Sandia National Laboratories. One of the things we tried to do in the first portion of the workshop today is to give you an overview by going through a strategy document, neuromorphic computing strategy document that was started at a workshop held in Heidelberg last October. And again, this is an incredibly exciting field. There has been a lot of interest and excitement both in the States and worldwide. There have been numerous workshops. And in this workshop, we're really hoping to be able to connect among several fields, starting with neuroscience, microelectronics, computing, and applications. Previous workshops, actually there was a workshop last week that was held, organized by Jacob Vogeltine, who's attending here as well and will be talking shortly here. All the workshops have slightly different focus points. Some of them focus more on algorithms, some of them focus more on the neuroscience part. In this workshop, we've really tried to be able to touch all the three areas with a specific focus on applications. And again, I hope you'll be able to see that throughout some of the presentations today and through the next couple of days. So I'd like to go ahead and turn the podium over to our first speaker, Julie Phillips. She's going to give us an introduction and a charge for the workshop.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here again, and great to see so many bright, eager faces embarking on a couple of days of thinking about this very important topic. It was a pleasure to be with you all last year as well, and I very much look forward to possibly being able to come back towards the end of the workshop and hear a little bit about your outcomes. But before we start on that, I thought it might be appropriate to give you a little background about why it is that we at Sandia National Laboratories are so interested and excited about this particular area of neuro-inspired computing. Just by way of background, for those of you who may not be terribly familiar with Sandia, we owe our origins to the Manhattan Project. We began actually as the engineering division of Los Alamos National Laboratory and became an independent entity in 1949. And what you see in the middle of this particular slide is a facsimile of a letter from President Harry Truman to the head of AT&T, and there was another one to the head of Bell Laboratories at that time. Both of those letters basically asking AT&T and Bell Laboratories to, quote, render an exceptional service in the national interest. And that has really become our motto and the phrase by which we go ever since 1949. Over time, of course, our missions have expanded, and I'll talk about this slide in the context of those missions, but what I want to point out at the beginning is around the outside of those blocks you see in the middle is the lab's foundation, which underpins everything that we do in terms of our mission space. And so that is where neuro-inspired computing fits today. In terms of our mission, of course, nuclear weapons was our first mission, and it remains really our core mission. That is the mission when the government asks us to do something, we must say yes. All of the other missions that have evolved over the decades since 1949, there is some element of choice involved, so that we do have the opportunity of saying no, even though in most cases we very much want to do that work and we believe we are particularly well suited to do it. With the nuclear weapons mission, of course, there were a set of capabilities that we had to develop in order to be able to execute on that mission. And not surprisingly, those capabilities came to be highly relevant and differentiating in terms of what we could do in other mission areas. And so those mission areas that are shown in the middle here, global nuclear dangers, nuclear assessment and warning, those are around proliferation issues, cyberspace, which has become particularly important in recent years, and synergistic defense products, which refers to other work that we do for the defense community. All of those were built on the capabilities that we developed in order to be able to execute on the nuclear weapons program. And over time, those particular mission areas took those capabilities, enriched them, and then poured those capabilities back into the nuclear weapons program. So today we have tremendous synergy among those different mission areas. Then we have another set of capabilities across the top. Global chemical and biological dangers, again thinking about proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, a secure and sustainable energy future, and finally leverage defense innovations. And those three mission areas actually are very synergistic with the capabilities that we have built up over the decades for the nuclear weapons program as well as for the other mission areas. Underpinning all of that, as I mentioned in the previous view graph, is the lab's foundation. And in that foundation, we have a set of capabilities. Those capabilities are composed of three inextricable components, namely the people, the facilities and tools that we have at our disposal, and the research that we do with those people and those facilities and tools. And this is very squarely where our effort in computation and information sciences, where our effort in microelectronics and nanodevices, all of that fits. And this is the foundation upon which all of those missions that I talked to you about are built. And so we do the neuroinspired computing and the computational research and microelectronics research in general in the foundation, and then it feeds up into those various mission areas at Sandia. In our research, we have an objective which has two prongs to it. The first is to enable mission delivery now and indefinitely into the future, so there's a very definite future orientation to that. And second, to advance the frontiers of science and engineering in those areas where we need to be preeminent in order to be able to execute on our mission. So again, I think you can see where neuroinspired computing fits very naturally into the way that we see ourselves as a laboratory. Our research strategy has three goals. And it's the middle one that I really want to point out today, and that is that we tackle groundbreaking interdisciplinary research challenges that create transformational opportunities in national security. These research challenges are relatively new, and in fact, we were just starting to formulate those last year at about this time when you had your first workshop here. Those research challenges have a number of attributes that we believe are particularly well suited for a national laboratory. Clearly, they must advance the state of the art in science and engineering in the area that we are working on. Second is they must be mission relevant, and that means that they need to be attacking some kind of critical path, technical obstacle, in order for us to be able to meet at least one of the challenges that are posed within our mission space. Third, they need to bring together a very broad cross-section of laboratory capabilities and disciplinary research foundations. So they need to be interdisciplinary, possibly even transdisciplinary, and they need to bridge all the way from fundamental science and advancing the frontiers of knowledge on the one end, all the way to technical demonstration, and to the point where they can actually be picked up and moved over into having mission impact. And finally, and very, very importantly for a workshop such as this, they must provide opportunities and even require that we engage very strongly with the broader research community. And that is one of the major reasons why we are having this workshop. Over on the right side of this chart are the research challenges that we have articulated to date. And you will see that there are a number of them that are listed in red. Those are the ones that I think are particularly relevant for the neuroinspired computing topic. Beyond more computing, I'll have more to say about that in a few minutes. Data science, basically referring to the fact that in all of our mission spaces we are drowning in data, and how we how we actually extract and use useful information from all of that data is an area that has sort of sprung up organically at various parts throughout the laboratory. And that is something where we think that neuro-inspired computing may be relevant. Cyber resiliency is, of course, an increasing problem for everybody who is at all technologically literate today, and it is especially severe in the case of a national security laboratory. Detection at the limit talks about how we really need to be able to detect at the absolute limit, for example, a single photon or a single particle. Not only that, but we need to be able to understand the context. So once we've detected it, we need to be able to know what it means. And then finally, resiliency in complex systems. This may be everything from the electricity grid to other national security problems. And again, there are lots of things around extracting information, doing computations potentially in different ways, and really trying to get at much more complex systems than historically we have dealt with. So let me turn to beyond more computing, which is probably the research challenge that we've articulated that is the most relevant to neuro-inspired computing. It's no news to anybody in this room, I'm sure, that Moore's law is breaking down, and you can ask yourself, well, exactly when will sort of CMOS totally peter out? I heard a talk actually on Friday that said, well, actually Moore's law ended in 2003 in some pretty real sense, because that was when we reached fundamental limits in terms of the operating voltage for CMOS devices. This has had a number of effects, and it will continue to have more profound effects as we go forward. Power efficiency has already flattened out. The processor speed is plateauing, and the circuit density is nearing atomic scale and getting very close to where it can go no further. And therefore, as we start thinking about how we are going to get to ever more powerful computers for whatever purpose we may need them, we are going to have to think about how we are actually going to architect those computers, because it's unrealistic to think we will actually build a power plant for every computer that we want to operate in that ultra-high performance regime. So that basically is the challenge, and in terms of what we have articulated, we really have identified three broad thrusts. The first is to design and prototype new subsystems and systems which are built with post-CMOS technology for classical digital computing. This has sort of been our bread and butter of high-performance computing, solving partial differential equations and that sort of thing. The second thrust is to develop and demonstrate key components for realizing alternative models. And here we're focusing on a number of non-von Neumann architectures, but certainly one of the areas of focus is on brain-inspired computing, right in the heart of what you all are going to be talking about for the next few days. And then finally, we are working on characterizing emerging device technologies wherever they may come from and trying to evaluate their potential for future and energy-efficient high-performance computing systems. So while we may actually do research on developing some new device technologies, we're also very interested in collaborating across the nation and around the world on promising device architectures and technologies that are being developed by the best minds that are being brought to bear on this topic. So it's a very exciting area and something we're very excited to be involved in. We believe that we have some things to offer in terms of pursuing this area of research. We have a very deep expertise in materials science, drawing again from the original mission needs that we had and of course maturing over the decades. And we also have significant novel device expertise, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about some of that over the course of the workshop. We have a tremendous center in microelectronics and nanoelectronics, and in a very real sense, this has become kind of the heart of the laboratory, the technical base and prowess of the laboratory, forming a very central part of how we meet almost all of our mission needs. We also have very well recognized expertise in computing architectures. Key components of the Red Storm architecture were developed here at Sandia, just as an example. And we also have expertise in the design of operating system software and applications codes that have major national security impact. And we have come to realize ever more strongly the very important connection between the computing architectures, the software stack, and the application code, and how we need to consider all of those together in the co-design approach in order to get an integrated system that works as well as it possibly can. In terms of our track record in this general area, the clean room was actually invented at Sandia. We never made a penny off of the royalties. This was something that was actually deployed for the public good. We also adopted CMOS transistors and massively parallel processors for high-performance computing. And as I mentioned earlier, we were responsible for significant components of the Red Storm architecture that was built by Cray and has been the best-selling of the high-performance computing platforms in history. In terms of where neuro-inspired computing at Sandia fits, I think I've already given you a fair amount of that context, but let me talk about it in a slightly different way. We have a set of research foundations. These are discipline-based areas of expertise that are absolutely essential for meeting our mission. Two of those are shown here. One is nanodevices and microsystems. RF stands for Research Foundation. The other is the Computer and Information Sciences Research Foundation. Beyond more computing, the research challenge I just talked about sits very much in the intersection of these two research foundations. We also have a young but vibrant effort in cognitive science and technology, which intersects with both of those research foundations. Data science, another one of the research challenges I talked about, fits in a pretty real way at the intersection between computer and information sciences and cognitive science and technology. And finally, neuro-inspired computing, I would argue, sits very much at the heart of the diagram as I have drawn it, bringing together all of these areas of expertise and active research at the laboratory. So why are we interested in it here at Sandia? Well, first, I think it's pretty clear that there are many national security problems that could be strongly impacted in a positive sense by achieving realistic scale or important scale neuro-inspired computing. Second, we have a very strong capability base to bring to bear on important aspects of the problem, while we clearly cannot do it without strong partnerships across the community. And finally, it does meet our research objective of advancing the frontiers of science and engineering in a field that we believe is very important to the future of our laboratory and to the nation's national security. In terms of what I hope to see in the workshop, and I hope to be able to come back towards the end of your talks and deliberations before you go into the workshop report writing. These are things I hope that I will be able to hear about on Wednesday, or Tuesday I think it is. The first question is, why would one invest in neuro-inspired and neuromorphic computing over other alternative computing technologies? In other words, we're going to have to place some bets. And this is one way we could place those bets. And why should we make this choice? I assume that the folks in this room are among those that are best qualified to answer that question. The second is, if we are successful in going down this research path, what might be the big wins that we would see? Third, and this, I know this is like predicting your research breakthroughs and so forth, but how long will it take to get there? Rough order of magnitude. I mean, are we talking 5 years? Are we talking 50 years? And what are those critical path objectives that will show that we are going along a good path and still on a track to get to something that is important. Where if we cannot demonstrate one thing or another, maybe we should be putting our money into something else. So these are the kinds of questions that I'm going to be very interested in hearing your thoughts as you go through the next few days. And I hope that I will have the opportunity to be educated towards the end of your workshop, and certainly I do look forward to reading the workshop report. So thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.